In the year 1684, the Vatican removed 14 books from the Bible. There were originally 80 books in the Bible when it was translated from Latin to English back in 1611. These days there are only 66. The missing books are known as the Apocrypha, which in Greek means hidden. The missing books include Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, the Songs of the Three Holy Children, Bel and the Dragon, Maccabees, and a prayer for Manasseh. Even stranger is that Jesus' name was spelled Iesus before these 14 books were removed. Some say the contents of the books didn't fit in with the Roman Catholic Church's narrative, so they were removed. But there is no real answer. But for whatever reason, the Catholic Church chose to remove them from the Bible so that the Word of God was exactly what they wanted it to be. Number 9. Alien influences. Russian professor Genrikh Ludwig allegedly gained access to the secret Vatican archives in the 1920s, but we don't actually have the evidence that Ludwig was inside the secret archives. The story goes that Ludwig was allowed into the archives, where he discovered over 53 miles, 85 kilometers of shelving, and 35,000 volumes of catalogues. There were papers that discussed how aliens had influenced all the most ancient civilizations of the world. In the 4th millennium BC, the Sumerians went from a bunch of primitive hunters to building walls, laying down irrigation canals, and coming up with a writing system. It could very well be that the aliens helped them, and that the Vatican has known about it all this time. Number 8. The Antichrist. In 2010, Reverend Gabriel Amorth was 85 years old. He was also the chief exorcist in the Vatican, with a history of treating over 70,000 cases of demonic possession. In an interview with the Italian newspaper La Repubblica, the Reverend defended his work and freely admitted that he believes the devil is a pure and invincible spirit of evil. He also told the reporters that the devil can speak many languages, he can transform himself at will, and he can stay hidden when necessary. But perhaps even more shocking is that when the Reverend discussed an attack by the devil in 1981, Gabriel Amorth claimed the devil infiltrated the Vatican and tried to directly attack John Paul II. And then in 2008, the devil got back into the Vatican again and possessed a Swiss-Italian woman named Susanna Maiolo. On Christmas Eve, she attempted to push down Pope Benedict XVI, but was foiled by the Pontifical Swiss Guard. She went back the next year on Christmas Eve during midnight mass and knocked the Pope over. The Reverend passed on in 2016, leaving behind a rather bizarre legacy of demonic paranoia in the Vatican. Number 7. The Three Secrets of Fatima. The Vatican may look like a simple religious organization from the outside, but they are a lot more mystical than people realize. The biggest prophecy of all was delivered on May 13, 1917. 3 young Portuguese shepherds were visited by an apparition of the Virgin Mary. The Virgin Mary gave the children 3 prophetic secrets. These secrets were apocalyptic visions of the end of the world. Lucia Santos became the speaker for the 3 shepherd girls. In 1941, she finally revealed to the Vatican 2 of the secret prophecies. In 1943, the Bishop of Leiria asked to reveal the 3rd secret, but Lucia refused. She said she didn't think God was ready for her to unveil the secret just yet. But later that year, the bishop had enough and ordered that Lucia write it down. The first secret was revealed by Lucia in her memoir to be a vision of hell. The second secret had to do with World War I and World War II. She predicted World War I would end, but that another war would quickly follow, should men continue to offend God. And in that, she was right. The third secret is hugely controversial. She gave a vivid description of the persecution of Christians in the 20th and 21st century, along with a vision of the apocalypse. Number 6. UFO over Vatican City. In 2007, a mysterious orange disk was spotted hovering over the Vatican. Witnesses saw what can only be described as a silver-orange glowing saucer in broad daylight, hovering over the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. As quickly as it caught the attention of citizens around the globe, the UFO visiting the Vatican was out of everyone's memory. But that doesn't change the fact that it happened. Something strange and seemingly alien hovered above the Vatican for several minutes in 2007. But nobody has any possible way of knowing if it truly did come from outer space. Number 5. The Lost Gospel. There is allegedly written evidence that Jesus Christ married Mary Magdalene and had babies. The evidence comes in the form of a manuscript from the 6th century. The manuscript tells a story of Jesus Christ as a single person who fell in love with Mary Magdalene and had some babies. Also, the manuscript paints Mary Magdalene as the daughter of God and the co-redeemer of humanity. But this obviously wouldn't have sat right with the Vatican, who wanted to whitewash Jesus and turn Christians into prudes. Number 4. Profiting from hypocrisy. The Vatican prospers frequently from things they don't believe in. As an example, you probably didn't know that the Vatican invested millions of euros in getting the film Rocket Man produced. This seems like a conflict of interest, considering Rocket Man was a film about Elton John finding happiness in his marriage to his husband David, a relationship extremely frowned upon by the Church. But even though that's what the movie was about, the Vatican had no problem investing roughly $1 million in getting it made, so that they could get a piece of the pie. Number 3. The Dead Man's Trail. In the year 897, Pope Stephen VI went through a lot of trouble to put a dead man on trial. It was one of the most bizarre things the Vatican ever did, at least that we know about. Pope Formosus had already been dead for a few months, and had no real way of defending himself or his honor. A deacon was even appointed to speak on behalf of the corpse. What followed will seem like insanity. Pope Stephen VI accused the former pope in front of an audience and hurled words at him as though he were screaming at a real, living person. The dead pope was, at the end of the farcical trial, found guilty of usurping the papacy. 3 of his fingers were cut off, and his body was cast into the river. Shortly after, Pope Stephen VI was thrown in prison and then strangled to death. Number 2. The Secret Archives. There is no place on this planet more secret than the Vatican's secret archives. Everything in the archives is so secretive that the Vatican only allows entry to the most trusted scholars over the age of 75. And while some say there are alien bodies in the archives and wild things like time machines, none of that is probably true. We do know of some artifacts being held in the archives. There's a letter from Mary, Queen of Scots, before she was killed in 1587. There are documents relating to the excommunication of Martin Luther. Anything important relating to the Church over the past 1200 years can be found in the archives. Number 1. The highest crime rate. There's one thing about Vatican City that they don't advertise to the tourists. They have one of the highest crime rates in the entire world. Statistics show that in Vatican City, 1 to 1.5 crimes are committed each year per person. There are about 1,000 people living here, mostly nuns and priests, but it's not them committing the crimes. There are 18 million tourists who travel each year to Vatican City. Many of these tourists are criminals. When you stack the pickpockets and shoplifters up against the actual citizens of Vatican City, the crime rate goes way up. Yes, Vatican City has the worst crime rate in Europe. However, it's only because, along with being a hub for religious pilgrims, it's also paradise for petty criminals who want to steal your wallet.